Hello and welcome. This video is about prepositions in the Koine Greek of the New Testament. We're going to look at how prepositions work, the message that they are used to convey, how they are about motion, and how they are used in a theoretical or conceptual sense as well. Very common words in the New Testament, so this is an early part of beginning your study. When we look at prepositions, we need to think about the case of the word the preposition is working in relation to or towards. Prepositions are usually about motion towards something, either in a literal, physiological and spatial sense, or in a theoretical sense, in a conceptual way. If the motion is away from something, then that word will be in the genitive. And if it's a stationary object, an object to the side, again either physically or in concept, then it's usually put into the dative. So let's put those into some examples so you can see what I'm talking about. The accusative, motioning into something. Eis to hieron, into the temple, from John 8:2. Eis is the word into, and hieron, the word for temple, is in the accusative. Here's a genitive example as well. Ek to hieru, out of the temple or out from the temple. This is in John chapter 2 verse 15. Ek, to be out of, we get exit from, and hieru means temple in the genitive. It's got its definite article there as well. And lastly, the temple is in the dative. In to hiero, in the temple. That's an example that I got from Matthew 12 verse 5, where the temple, hiero, is dative, and the preposition used is en, meaning in. And the temple, of course, is a stationary object, and the preposition is coming to rest in a sense. So it's in that stationary object, in the temple. Rather than just listing the words, it can be very useful to use illustrations to understand words. And there's a chap called Dun Pfaff, who I believe was training as a Catholic minister in a seminary quite some decades ago, who I think drew this diagram to illustrate prepositions, and it's really great, so I'm going to use it again here and go through what those words mean. In order to focus in and zoom in on some of the words so they're big enough that you can see them on the screen, just mention that above on the shelf there's a mouse, and the word is hooper, meaning above or over. And I'm just going to cut that one out so we can zoom in a bit on the other ones. So I'm just going to zoom in a bit on the other terms and go through what they mean individually. I'm just going to go through these words. I've just drawn on screen here for you in this purple arrowish the direction I'm going to take as I go around this picture. I'm going to start at the top with epi, move down, around, back up to ana at the top, and then down to apa in the bottom left hand corner. I'm just going to read these words out for you to give you the pronunciation and the meaning. We have epi, meaning upon. Kata is down. Amphi, both sides of. You can see the cat's paws are on both sides of the cheese. Hupo is under. Dia is through. Pros is towards. Para is beside or alongside. Ace means into. En means in, as it does in other languages. Ana is up, often used in sort of climbing or going up. Ek means out of. Anti is against, very much how it's used in English, often used as a suffix against various words or concepts of thought. And apo in the bottom left hand corner means away from. So I've given some examples here, and a lot of the time the words in English are very much related to the Greek origin. Epi, as in epicenter, in the middle of, epicenter. Kata, as in catabolism. It's a form of metabolism where the size of the molecule is reduced down by the reaction that is happening. So kata, down, and ana, up. So catabolism is about reducing. Amphi, meaning around. Amphitheatre, a theatre where the stage is in the middle and the audience is set around them. Hyper means over, as in hyperactive. Hypercaust, hyperglycemic, too much sugar in your blood. Hypo becomes hupo in Greek. So in the medical term, hypoglycemic means low blood sugar. That's come from hupo, meaning under. Dia means through, so as in diametric, through measurements. Pros, as in prosthetic. Pros means towards, so a prosthesis is literally towards the body in the physical sense. It's being brought towards the body. Para, as in paragraph, meaning around words, around writing, or with writing. Or parapet is the bit alongside the roof, so if somebody fell off the roof they wouldn't fall all the way to the ground. There's a parapet to catch them. Ace, epsilon, iota, sigma. I couldn't think of an example of that. If you think of one, do put it in the comments. N, as in entrance, means in. Ana, as I said, is as in anabolic, that increases the size of a molecule in the metabolic processing. Ek means out of, so ecstatic is an example of that, out of that strong feeling. Anti, against, as in antibiotic, because antibiotics kill the biotic agent. Bios means life, so it's against life. Antibiotic, it's killing those bacteria. And the last example, apo, as in apology. I put these words partly here for your pronunciation, but if you want to think about meaning as well, apology meaning is literally away from words. So maybe saying sorry is about moving away from the words you said that hurt somebody's feelings. So you're moving back towards reconciliation by moving away from the discord that was created by the words. So apologos, apology, away from words. I could be wrong, but I reckon that's maybe why we have the term apology. Now there's another set of illustrations which are very good for illustrating the prepositions in the Greek. I don't know, I couldn't find who was the artist in this case who created these. If you do know, then do let me know and I'll make sure that I can credit them. In the first one, and this is a little story about a missionary and a lion. The first one, the lion is in the accusative, leonta. So towards the lion, pros ton leonta, or para, to perhaps he's peripatunti, walking alongside the lion. But if it shifts, so the lion is then in the dative, we have a slightly different sense of what those words mean. Towards the lion in this case might be translated in looking towards the lion, and the verb to look might be in there as well. And para, alongside, you would probably use if you're more directly alongside, so that rather than a motion where he's walking alongside the lion, he's alongside as in he's next to the lion. And don't forget that we're not just talking about physical motions here. There can be theoretical concepts of towards or alongside. If you said that two people's thinking was alongside each other, you might do that if they're thoughts, their opinions are aligned on a particular issue. And that sort of theoretical concept is used in ancient Greek and Koine Greek. Now, if we wanted to say on the lion, we would use the word epi. I'll come back to that, but we would use it with the genitive. In this case, epi is being used with an accusative. So remember, an accusative is the object of the verb. The verb isn't directly stated here, but if it's going to be with epi, I'm guessing it's going to be something like he's coming upon the lion, if you think of it in that way. We use that in English to, if we come upon something, we're moving towards it, the motion is towards it, and you can see the lion's reaction here is a defensive one because the man is moving towards him aggressively. The reason the artist has drawn it like that is because in this context, epi with the accusative means he's moving on him. And if we said the same in English, he's moving in on him. You would think of that as making a move in on something, like if you were hunting it or something like that. Next we have periton leonta, a word that comes into English in a number of words. Peri to mean around. So he is going around the lion. Next we have periton leonta, a word that comes into English in a number of words. Peri to mean around. So he is going around the lion. Here we have two examples of with the lion. Sun to leonti in the dative, meta to leontos. The dative would probably be used to speak of moving away from something that was still. So in this case you might say the man and the lion are moving away from the palm trees, in which case you would say, you might use dative and say sun to leonti if the lion is in the dative in this case, but meta would be used if the lion was in the genitive within the sentence, and there's quite a lot of examples of use of that. It's not a bad idea, by the way, to go onto a website. You could use Bible Hub or Step or Bible Study Tools, something like that. Put in these words, have a little look at how they're used, and even if you're not familiar with your Greek yet and you're not an expert yet and you can't read it, you can pull it up in an interlinear with the English alongside it, and it'll give you an example of how it's been used and also how it's been translated into English. Here we have a rather silly man who's decided to climb the lion. Anna, he's going up the lion. Anna ton leonta. We might add it to the word to climb and make Anna binonta, climbing the lion. If you want to live a long and happy life, this is a good example of what not to do. Now the lion is getting a bit annoyed by all this, so he's grabbed the man and he's chucked him in the air, and he is now over the lion. Hooper to leontos. Hooper comes into English as hyper, and we get a lot of words from that. We use it just on its own, in fact. But there's lots of medical terms as well that begin with hyper. Hyperglycemia is too much sugar. Hyperactive is an overactive child, for example, and various other terminology like that. The genitive in this case, hooper to leontos. Here we have the preposition epi, on the lion. Epi to leontos. The man is sitting on the lion. Oh, and by the way, a word to the wise. If you do happen to own a lion, please don't try this at home. I don't really think they like to be ridden. Don't try it at home, don't try it in a zoo, don't try it in a savannah. It's all going to end in tears. And not your tears, the tears of your grieving relatives at your funeral. Don't do it. And if, in a moment of foolhardiness, you do find yourself upon a lion, the best thing to do is to get down. Kata to leontos, down the line. Or you might put it with the word to climb down, katabino to leontos, I climb down the lion, which would be a wise move in this context. Now, of course, this man should be removing himself from the presence of said lion with great alacrity, but instead he has now decided to lie underneath it. So we have under the line hupo to leonti. Hupo, meaning under. You might recognize that from medical terms. It's used a lot to mean under or not enough of, such as hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. There is, of course, a certain inevitability if you annoy a lion that you might end up getting eaten. Eis ton leonta. We have here leonta again in the accusative. He's going into the lion, who is clearly fed up. Having been eaten by the lion, this man is now inside him. So en to leonti. Leonti is the dative. En meaning in. En to leonti. The lion, who I actually think is the victim of this story, he clearly doesn't like the taste of human being and has decided to spit him out. So we have ek to leontos, out of the lion. And here we have again the genitive, to leontos. It's a third declension noun, so it ends in tos, but the definite article to tells us we have a genitive. And this man, I'm guessing he's like a missionary or something, he's finally seen sense and is making haste to get away from this lion. So apo to, the genitive, to leontos. Apo to leontos. Away from the lion. So there's a good example in English, the word apostasy. An apostate is somebody who has backslidden from their faith or fallen away from their faith, is in some sort of state of argument with God. And it is the two words combined, apo, meaning away, away from, and stasis, which is translated various different ways, but things like discord, argument, disagreement. So it's that apo, that moving away from God, and the stasis bit means that you're in argument, disagreement with God, so you've moved away from God. And there is actually quite a large number of words like this in English, where a Greek preposition has joined another word, usually another word from Greek, to form a word. Sometimes it's even two prepositions that have come together. And exactly the same thing happens in the Greek as well. A lot of these prepositions actually join on to another word rather than just being set separately in the syntax, that is the layout, the syntax of the text. Apostle, somebody sent away, personally commissioned and sent away to carry a message, is an example. The apo has joined the stolos, or stoloi if it's plural. And by the way, do remember that we pronounce the omicron with a hard O at the end of apo. On its own, it sounds a little bit weird to say it like that. We naturally want to say it as apo when we pronounce it with an English accent. But as you can see in the word apostasy, it is a hard O. And we'll have quite a few words in Greek. Apokryphes is about answering somebody, so the words are coming away from you. And apostle is being sent out, sent away by Jesus. And in these cases it's apo, not apo. And another very good example that's not only used in the Bible but pretty much comes straight into English, almost entirely unchanged, is this word on screen. Can you work out what that one is? Dia logia. Now, well done if you noticed that it's logia and not logos, so it's words, plural, not word. The dia means through, so this literally means through words, and it's often translated as persuasion or argument. It says in Acts, for example, that Paul persuaded people, dialogia, he persuaded them through words. And we, of course, get the English word dialogue from this. Now, if you were to Google Koine Greek prepositions, you will find that there's lots of flowcharts and diagrams like that. I thought that the lion and the mice with the cat and the cheese were really good ways of remembering those things, so I haven't used so many of these in explaining it. But these prepositions done in a sort of flowchart give you an example of how they are used in the sense of time, where pro, used with the genitive, would mean before. Archi or heos would mean until. Something in the same time of, we're going to use epi with the genitive again. It's being used this time. The word in is being used to mean in the present tense. So we would say it's in the same time that something else is happening. Epi. And after, we might use a word like meta and an accusative, or hopiso. An example is when John the Baptist says, the one coming after me, referring to Jesus, he says, hopiso mu, in the first chapter of John. Now, for you to have a bit of a practice, there's a number of examples on the screen for you here. If you'd like to have a go at these, then hit the pause button and have a look through and see if you can work out what they mean. Have a look and see if you can work out which word is the preposition in each case. Well, we've been looking at John chapter 1 for some examples in our recent videos, so I'll just give you a few quick examples from that. In the very first verse, we've got, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So the bit that says, and the Word was with God. Here we've got kai, hologos, and pros, ton, theon. Now, literally that means towards God, but God is in the accusative, and we're thinking not about a literal motion here, but the theoretical sense. So if it is towards him, it is making its move to be with him. So if you want to think of it that way, so it is good translation, and most translations render it this way, that the word is with God. And that's a very normal way to render this sort of translation in Greek in general. John came in order that he might testify concerning the light. In Greek that's hina marturese perito to photos. In this context we have peri is the preposition, meaning around, and in terms of a concept, we translate that as about or concerning in this case. Then you've got to, because it's associative, it's in the genitive, and photos, the word for light, is a third declension noun. Check out the video on third declension nouns if you want to find out more about that. So it ends with the tos, normally tos or os sound, Omicron Sigma sound, is going to be a nominative, but if it's a third declension noun, then we know that's genitive. And this text from the Bible Hub shows NGNS, which means noun, genitive, neuter, singular. And just one more, it talks also in the chapter about Jesus being the one sent from God. We have that word gen, I've mentioned in other videos, is where we get the word Genesis from, and mono, meaning one. So it's translated as the only begotten one. Then para, from the Father, patros. And again, patros is also a third declension noun, and that's also gone into the genitive, so it's patros in this case. Hos monogenes, para patros. Hos monogenous, para patros, as an only begotten one from the Father. You may have heard of the song, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls. Well, the sage advice that I'm going to leave you with today, which no doubt will be very highly important in your decision making in future, don't go sitting on any lions. Not sure if you can fit that to the tune. Not going to try. I'll spare you that. But thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to click subscribe if you'd like to hear when there are more videos uploaded. If you can give me a like, that would be great. Otherwise, thanks for coming, thanks for listening, goodbye, and God bless.